Democracy matters because the people's voice needs to be heard, especially when the legislation passed by your parliament impacts everyone's everyday life.
It's the best system we have for making sure that people have choices about the direction of their country. It's got to work well. Most parts of the world it doesn't work really well, but we have, I think, slowly improving in the Pacific and in Australia.
Democracy is at the heart of our community. It's about being representative. It's about representing all of those in the community, different ages, different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different beliefs, and clearly different genders.
In the Solomons, they say your vote is your voice. Your voice means when your member of parliament speaks in parliament, he or she represents you, and therefore your vote matters because it's your voice that will be reflected in parliament through the ballot that you cast your vote for during an election.
Democracy is at the absolute bedrock of our society. It matters because it's people being in charge of their destiny and being in control of how our society operates. That's the fundamental essence of democracy. Government of the people, for the people and by the people.
The main challenge is the connection, the connect between the members and the people. That is the main challenge I like to focus on, that people understand what is going around and how can they share their views to their representative.
One of the biggest challenges in the Westminster system democracies is the domination of a parliament by a government. Sometimes people are not prepared to hold the government to account in the way that they should, mainly because they want to be ministers themselves in the relatively near future. So I think in New Zealand and Australia and in most Pacific Islands, we have relatively weak accountability from government backbenchers. They don't have the backbone that they do in the United Kingdom.
I think one of the biggest challenges that facing smaller jurisdictions like my little country is social media and the ability of social media to spread misinformation very quickly. It's affecting our island. Somebody who was far more intelligent than me has predicted that perhaps in time, if we don't do something about it, social media could eventually become the demise of traditional society.
Sometimes the challenges that we have is when government have a vast majority in parliament, you tend to see a bulldozing of bills without proper debates. These are the things that we face on a small island.
When I first entered Parliament, gender balance just really wasn't even close to being a thing. Now many parliaments are approaching a gender balance. We're also seeing people from different communities that are represented within the broader community being represented in the Parliament. I suppose age-wise though, we're still seeing generally older people elected to the Parliament, so the voice of youth isn't quite there.
I think in recent decades, the strongest challenge that we've had to face is an erosion in the faith and the trust in our democratic system.
More civic education, informing young voters and existing voters of their duty.
I think the first week that I was elected, I announced that breastfeeding would be allowed in our Assembly chamber. That's something that hadn't previously been permitted in the Assembly chamber. I've further reformed our sitting hours so that we're not, as a general rule, sitting past 7 p.m. at night. That's been a significant change. When I entered Parliament, the sitting hours 2 days a week were at least 10 p.m. and often we would sit post midnight. There may be the exceptional occasion where we will stay late, but that's no longer the norm. People generally, not just women, but men want to get home and need to get home to their families as well. They want to be able to see their families and their children of a night time and to work more regular business hours. So there's some of the things that assist people to be able to contemplate a career in Parliament.
At the moment, we're currently going through our autonomy. We passed a bill. It gives the power and the autonomy and the recognition of Parliament and the Speaker to do things without being held to ransom to the executive. I think in principle it's a very good idea.
My one reform would be to make select committees proportionate to the non-executive members of the Parliament, so that the backbenchers will control the select committees and that way improve legislation and scrutiny.
We need to make sure that the influence makers and the decision makers are absolutely above any reproach when it comes to making decisions and the operation of decisions within a democratic system. I'd be happy to fund a full publicly funded election system on the basis that those who were running in elections promised not to receive donations outside publicly funded system.
I think we need to engage a little bit more with the electorate. Education is one way of doing it. I think we can't leave it up to the media all the time, because obviously the media they've got their own way of dealing with things. I think we need to take a more proactive role in promoting the work of parliaments.
I do think involving the whole community, involving women, men, First Australians, people who've arrived more recently, older people, younger people, that's certainly key to it. Making people feel that their vote actually counts, making people feel that they've got a voice through their local member. There's no one single thing that will achieve that, in my view. There's a whole range of things that have to be put in place. I think the face of Parliament has changed significantly over the last couple of decades. Women are more visible, people from different cultural backgrounds are more visible, and I think if people can see that, they can aspire to that. It means that young children, young girls today will see role models in the Parliament right round Australia.
One is the outreach, to exercise the awareness that parliaments do to reach the populace, to explain what exactly democracy is all about and why it is important that they must cast their vote. Because in some countries, voting is not mandatory, it's voluntary. And when they don't see the value, obviously, they will not be induced to cast their vote.
Important for the parliament is to keep the connection between the people and the members of parliament. And that's how you then become important and very important to all members that democracy took place.